said I would love to cover immigration. Because for me, it is the story of New York City. And if I was going to be covering the city, I wanted to be covering stories about the people of the city. And I know no other, more dynamic subject than immigration, the life of the immigrant in New York. It's communities and diasporas, and it just kind of fascinated me, and I hadn't done it yet. And so he said, I would love to do that.
Hi, my name is Tatiana, and I'm in the public policy program. My question to you is, do you think Congress and the President should be thinking about these personal stories whenever they're deciding things, either being put on the political agenda or just passing any laws or regulations?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think to talk about, making things tangible. I think it's important for policymakers, as anyone else, to understand what we're talking about when we're talking about immigration. And policy is important, but policy has to be founded in the people, the population, the policy designed to affect. And I think too often, as I said earlier, I think the idea of the individual and the stories and the complexities are lost. I think absolutely. And in a real way, not in an artificial way. I just want to see people, get into contact with what they regard as the other. I think it detoxifies the conversation. It somehow levels out the playing field for everyone, so we can see what we're talking about. Does that make sense?
I'm Deborah. I'm the chair of SDS and Public Policy, and I use ethnography in my research, and I think there's some very distinct similarities between the way you're approaching journalism and how other people approach ethnography and putting the person forward and all their complexities. But so I guess I have a comparative question that I'd like to ask you, which is one of the things that ethnographers battle with is our responsibility. Should there be backlash to the person who shares their very, very personal story in their family, their community, particularly if there are different cultural issues or language issues to bear? So to the policy students, or the journalism students, or ethnographers, can you speak to the role of the professional journalist who enters that realm of reporting on highly personal and sometimes perhaps even illegal situations to their informant?
Yeah. So I think I trust first and foremost my sources with self-preservation instincts. I also, so they're going to, in a large part, they're going to decide what they want to tell me and what they want to convey, how much they want to expose themselves, make themselves vulnerable for retribution of any sort, whether it's from law enforcement officials or whether it's from their brother. We talked a little bit about this in the ethics class as well. I try to be careful, and I try to be careful about how much my sources know about what we do as a newspaper. Sometimes there's a cultural gap and a gap in understanding. So it behooves me to explain, this is what this, not everybody has facility in all cultures, and to understand the role of and the nature of Western journalism and specifically the New York Times, and what kind of reach it has, and it's how it manifests itself in the different iterations online and the analog version and so forth. So I'll take that extra step and say, just so you understand, this is what we're doing. Fortunately, a lot of people know the New York Times, and the New York Times reputation precedes my arrival in the life of this individual. So, I take that step from sort of my position as a human being. Like, most of the people I talk to this job are just, so they're sort of there's ordinary people going about their day, trying to make it through the day alive, you know, and slightly richer than and happier than they started. And so I'm not trying to take people out at the knees and cut their heads off, or, you know, bring government down, or, you know, expose it. If there are jobs that I'll have, stories that I'll do that I've done in my career where clearly there was an abuse of the public trust, and there was elements of corruption or crimes and had been done, and I wanted to expose those, and I was going to expose those, right? But I think what we're talking about is a different kind of group of sources and a different kind of set of stories. So yes, I'm conscious of those things, and what I try to do is ensure that there's an understanding about what kind of transaction is going on, and what that means in practical terms sometimes is providing people with an element of anonymity or total anonymity. We have very strict rules at the New York Times governing use of anonymous sources. There are times when it's not even questioned, particularly when you know, the upshot or the result of somebody's identity being revealed in the context of their statement or their anecdote or their story being published in the New York Times could be pretty severe for them, including the loss of life. And so we're governed by those considerations at all times. Does that answer your question? But you're right. I mean, making that association with ethnography. I mean, my anthropology professors at college would probably be happy to, you know, that you pointed that out. I'm probably influenced by that to a certain extent. Hi.
Also, I'm anthropologist. And I was thinking the same thing that Deb was about the incredible similarity here between how you were trying to tell your stories and what you tried to do in anthropology. And I think probably not all journalists, right, feel like you do. I know this, right? They don't all put the person forward as they put it. They don't all seek to, in terms of humanize people, you know, they're working with. So I think I'm really glad that you're doing that. But I had a question about writing strategy. Like, how do you, sometimes when you write about the human, like the very personal, the individual, that in itself is seen as sort of a liberal act, right? I mean, New York Times.
Like politically liberal?
Exactly, politically liberal.
Really?
Because you humanize people, like you write and talk about individuals, especially in the context of immigration, that is seen as sort of, you know, inherently necessarily liberal.
Wow.
And, you know, the New York Times.
But when did humanity become a liberal domain?
Right.
That's
Like,
exciting.
You know, like New English, like public country for just saying the word humanitarian, right? And that,
Right.
you know.
And it was Hillary.
Right. So, and I know the New York Times gets criticized, it's not the whole paper, it's like NPR, and I want to be nice, it's kind of get that piece just because it also talks about human stories. And, you know, anthropology gets accused of a liberal discipline, or all of us, you know, some believe,
Right.
because we try to humanize the people we're talking about. So I was
I know that my stories, my reputation is only as solid as my last story. And I was talking about this earlier in the ethics class, but you know, I want my stories to have the widest range of readership possible. So I don't want to give people any reason to like disrespect the story, but people are going to use this notion that to write about human beings, like consider human beings as is somehow a liberal act. I mean, that frightens me, you know, and that makes me really sad, you know, for this nation if that's where we've gotten. You know, because if it's not about the individual, then what is it about, right? I mean, so I guess part of the answer, I just ignore that. I mean, so people are going to read what they want. Let's lay out a story. I could just be doing a dictation, 1,200-word dictation of something that somebody said at a city council meeting. But still, somehow, that is going to be used by somebody as a cudgel to beat the New York Times over the head. You know? I mean, there are people find, I think I described earlier, the Rorschach. No, I didn't, but I do this often. I mean, I describe our stories often as a Rorschach inkblot test. And, you know, looking at the story, and people find in it what they want. I used to experience this all the time in Iraq, because I was in Iraq and Baghdad for 2 years during the heaviest years. I mean, when there was the most activity, the highest number of troops, the most killing, the most polemics, the most controversy, the most debate on Capitol Hill, and so people were pretty fired up about it. And I would write a story, it was just a news story, you know. This happened, these people were killed here, the Iraqi government decided this. I mean, just straight up, it could be a 800-word story, and then suddenly it'd be like, you know, in the morning, from both sides, right? Conservatives, the Republicans saying that, you know, I was trying to embarrass the president. I heard it from every direction. So it didn't matter at some point, but it doesn't matter what you read.
Hi, my name is Monica. I'm an international studies student. So you mentioned a couple of times that your style of writing, you know, sharing stories about different immigrants, just their daily lives and their experiences, it was kind of unique to New York City in the way that you were writing. So what I was wondering was, how would that style of reporting, I guess, translate on the national level? Like, would it be something that would work in the same way, or?
Yeah, I think I said it very clearly.